Welcome to Abba Memorabile, from Time Beyond Memory. I'm Drake,
And I'm Holly, where ancient wisdom meets modern minds.
brought to you by the most ancient anamnetic order of Trikala, for seekers everywhere, whether you're walking with us or simply curious about the path.
Each episode, we explore the hidden patterns that connect philosophy, consciousness, and human transformation.
Drawing from traditions east and west, old and new, familiar and forgotten.
Because some truths exist outside of time, waiting to be remembered, not learned.
On this episode, we're exploring a paradox that every wisdom tradition has recognized: how the places where we're most broken often become the sources of our greatest strength, and why your deepest wound might actually be pointing you toward your life's purpose.
Drake, I've been sitting with something all week that I can't shake. You know how we're taught to hide our scars, overcome our weaknesses, pretend we're not broken?
The whole never let them see you sweat mentality.
Exactly. But what if we've got it completely backwards? What if the very thing we're trying to hide or fix is actually the key to our purpose?
You're thinking of Chiron, aren't you? The wounded healer from Greek mythology.
It's such a powerful story. Chiron was this immortal centaur, accidentally wounded by a poisoned arrow. The wound would never heal. Imagine that eternal suffering. But here's the extraordinary part. Through seeking relief from his own pain, he became the greatest healer in all of Greece.
And he could only heal others because he understood suffering from the inside. His wound became his qualification.
Which is exactly what we see in shamanic traditions worldwide. The shaman isn't someone who avoided crisis. They're someone who went through it and came back with medicine for the tribe.
The initiation is always through ordeal, whether it's a near-death experience, a psychological break, a mysterious illness. Something cracks them open. And in that cracking open,
Something else enters. Or maybe something that was always there finally has room to emerge. It reminds me of Rumi's line, "The wound is where the light enters you."
that's not metaphorical, is it? Think about it practically. Where do you develop compassion? Through your own suffering. Where do you gain wisdom? Through your mistakes. Where do you find strength? Through surviving what you thought would destroy you.
Modern psychology is catching up to this ancient understanding. Have you seen the research on post-traumatic growth?
Where people don't just recover from trauma, but actually grow beyond their pre-trauma baseline.
Precisely. Tedeschi and Calhoun identified 5 areas of growth: appreciation of life, relating to others, personal strength, recognizing new possibilities, and spiritual development. But here's what's fascinating. It's not despite the trauma, it's because of it.
The trauma becomes the catalyst, like a bone that grows back stronger at the break point.
Or like Kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold?
Oh, that's perfect. They don't hide the cracks, they illuminate them. The break becomes part of the object's history, part of its beauty.
And the repaired piece is considered more valuable than the original because it's been transformed through breaking. It has a story now, a depth that an unbroken piece could never have.
This connects to Jung's concept of the shadow, doesn't it? The parts of ourselves we reject or hide often contain tremendous energy and potential.
Jung said, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. But when you integrate it,
It becomes a source of power. The very thing you've been running from becomes the thing that propels you forward.
I see this pattern everywhere once you start looking. The person who struggled with addiction becomes the counselor. The one who survived abuse becomes the advocate. The one who battled mental illness becomes the healer.
It's not universal, though. Not everyone who suffers becomes wise. Not every wound becomes a gift. So, what makes the difference?
I think it's about relationship, how you relate to the wound. Do you let it define you as a victim, or do you let it transform you into something else?
The alchemical perspective, turning lead into gold. But the lead is necessary. You can't make gold from nothing.
And maybe that's why our sanitized modern life feels so empty sometimes. We've gotten so good at avoiding suffering that we've also avoided transformation.
The Buddha's whole awakening came from encountering suffering. The Four Noble Truths start with dukkha, suffering, dissatisfaction. He didn't transcend suffering by avoiding it, but by going straight through it.
and he could only teach the path because he'd walked it himself. Imagine Buddha trying to teach about suffering if he'd never left the palace, never seen old age, sickness, death.
He'd have no credibility, no depth. It would just be philosophy, not wisdom.
This is what indigenous cultures understood with their initiation rites. You can't become an adult by just getting older. You have to go through an ordeal, face death symbolically or sometimes literally, and return transformed.
We've lost that in modern culture. We have no real initiations, no conscious engagement with necessary suffering. So it comes anyway, but sideways, unconsciously, through addiction, depression, anxiety, violence.
Or we have what the order calls the wound that arrives precisely when needed. The crisis that cracks open the ego shell that's become too rigid.
You know what's interesting? In Hebrew, the word tselem, usually translated as image, as in made in God's image, also means shadow. We're made in the divine shadow,
So our darkness is part of the design, not a flaw, but a feature.
which changes everything about how we approach our wounds. Instead of, why me? The question becomes, what is this here to teach me?
Or, even more radically, what gift am I meant to bring to the world through this wound?
Because think about it. Every great teacher, healer, artist, leader, they're not teaching from their strengths. They're teaching from their transformed wounds.
Van Gogh's madness becoming transcendent art. Beethoven's deafness deepening his inner hearing. Helen Keller's blindness and deafness making her a beacon of possibility.
Or on a more everyday level, the parent who struggled with their own childhood becomes fiercely devoted to giving their children what they never had.
The executive who burned out becomes the advocate for work-life balance.
The one who felt like an outsider becomes the one who makes sure everyone's included.
There's something in trauma therapy called the window of tolerance, the zone where you can experience emotions without being overwhelmed or shutting down.
And trauma shrinks that window.
Initially, yes. But here's what's remarkable. When you heal, you don't just return to your original window. You can actually expand it beyond where you started. You develop a capacity to hold more, feel more, be present to more of life.
So the wound, properly worked with, increases your capacity for life itself.
Exactly. It's like weightlifting. You have to break down the muscle fibers for them to grow back stronger. No breakdown, no growth.
The Sufi poet Hafiz wrote, "The place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you." What if he was talking about our wounds? What if they're not random, but precisely calibrated for our growth?
That's a dangerous teaching, though. It could justify suffering, make people passive.
You're right. It's not about glorifying suffering or seeking it out. It's about recognizing that when suffering arrives, and it will, it carries potential within it.
The Buddhist concept of skillful means using whatever arises as a path to awakening. Your wound becomes your method.
I keep thinking about initiation. In traditional cultures, the initiation often involved a deliberate wounding, scarification, piercing, some form of ordeal that left a mark.
Because unmarked means uninitiated. If you have no scars, you haven't fully lived.
But they were held wounds. The community was there. The elders who'd been through it guided you. There was meaning and context.
That's what we're missing now. We have the wounds, but not the container. The suffering, but not the meaning making. The breaking, but not the conscious rebuilding.
Which is where practices like therapy, spiritual direction, or working with groups like the Order come in. They provide the container for transformation that culture used to provide.
Because, and this is crucial, you can't do this work alone. Chiron needed his students. The shaman needs the tribe. The wounded healer needs someone to heal.
The wound creates the opening, but relationship creates the healing. And in healing others, we heal ourselves.
It's a circular process. Your wound makes you capable of helping others with similar wounds. Helping them deepens your own healing, which makes you more capable of helping.
Let me share something from neuroscience that's quite remarkable. When we experience trauma, it literally changes our brain structure. But here's the thing. Those changes can make us more perceptive to certain types of information.
Like how?
Someone who grew up in an unsafe environment develops hypervigilance. They can read microexpressions, sense tension, pick up on danger cues that others miss completely.
That's a survival adaptation.
Right, but think about it. Properly channeled, That same hypervigilance becomes profound intuition. The wound creates an ability.
The therapist who can sense what's unsaid because they had to read the room to stay safe as a child.
The leader who can navigate complex political dynamics because they learned to manage volatile family dynamics.
The artist who can express the inexpressible because they had to find ways to communicate what couldn't be spoken.
In the order, we talk about wounds as initiatory technologies. They upgrade your operating system, give you access to frequencies others can't perceive.
But only if you do the work of integration. Otherwise, you're just walking around with an open wound, bleeding on everyone.
That's the key distinction, isn't it? Between someone who's been wounded and someone who's been initiated. The initiated have transformed their wound into medicine.
There's something else about wounds that I've been contemplating. They create humility. When you've been broken, really broken, you lose the illusion of invulnerability.
The ego's fortress walls come down.
And in that humbling, something else can enter. Call it grace, call it wisdom, call it divine light, but it can only enter through the cracks.
Leonard Cohen sang it, "There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in."
And maybe that's why so many spiritual traditions include some form of ego death or dark night of the soul. You have to be broken open to be remade.
The phoenix has to burn completely before it can rise. There's no partial resurrection.
Which is terrifying. No wonder we resist it. No wonder we try to heal without actually transforming, to feel better without changing.
But the wound won't let us. It keeps calling us back, keeps insisting on attention until we finally turn toward it and ask, "What do you want from me?"
And often the answer is, I want you to become who you really are. I want you to drop the facade and live from your truth. I want you to stop pretending you're not broken and start sharing the medicine that comes from your particular breaking.
This connects to something profound about purpose. We often think of purpose as something we choose or discover. But what if purpose chooses us through our wounds?
Like the wound is a calling card from destiny.
Exactly. Your specific wound qualifies you for a specific service. Not everyone can help everyone, but someone with your exact wound pattern can help people you're uniquely qualified to reach.
It's like having a key that only opens certain doors. Your wound is the shape of that key.
Which means, and this is quite radical, your wound isn't a detour from your path. It is your path.
The thing you thought disqualified you actually qualifies you.
The thing you thought made you weak actually makes you strong, but a different kind of strong. Not invulnerable strong, but resilient strong. Not perfect strong, but real strong.
Kintsugi strong. Beautiful because of the breaks, not despite them.
So here's my question. What if we stopped trying to hide our wounds and started seeing them as qualifications?
What if we stopped seeing therapy and healing work as fixing what's wrong and started seeing it as uncovering the gift in the wound?
What if every support group, every healing circle, every therapeutic relationship is actually a kind of initiation, helping people transform their wounds into medicine?
And what if that's not just personal work, but cultural work? Because a culture that can't acknowledge its wounds can't access its gifts.
The shadow of empire, colonization, slavery, genocide, these collective wounds we try to forget or minimize.
They're also calling for transformation, asking to be integrated, to become teaching, to birth new possibilities.
But it requires the same thing individually and collectively. Turning toward the wound instead of away, asking what it has to teach, being willing to be transformed by it.
And recognizing that on the other side of that transformation isn't the absence of wounding, but the presence of wisdom.
The scar remains, but it becomes a story of survival, resilience, growth.
A testament that says, I've been through something. I've been initiated. I have medicine to share.
You know what strikes me? Every wisdom tradition has some version of this teaching. It's like humanity keeps discovering the same truth over and over.
That suffering isn't meaningless, that wounds aren't just damage, that breaking can be breaking open, not just breaking down.
And that perhaps the greatest gift you can give the world isn't your strength, but your transformed vulnerability.
Your integrated wound, your alchemized pain, your scar becomes scripture.
Because when you share from that place, you give others permission to transform their own wounds. You become living proof that breaking doesn't mean broken forever.
That actually sometimes breaking is the beginning of becoming.
The wound and the gift. Not two things, but one thing, seen from different angles.
And maybe that's the deepest teaching here, that what we call wound and what we call gift are just different stages of the same transformation.
The wound is the gift still becoming itself.
And we're all wounded healers, whether we know it or not. The question is just whether we'll accept the initiation.
Thank you for joining us for this exploration.
Ab immemorabili, from time beyond memory.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep growing.
And remember, the wisdom you seek has always been within you.
You're not learning it,
You're remembering it.